Oh, that's really loud. If you all want to come up a little bit closer, let's get intimate. Come up here on the first few rows. Yes. Come sit by Jake and Savannah. Thanks so much for being here. I'm excited to be here, and thank you to Startup Con for inviting me. And it's Friday. We made it. Another week. So go us. Round of applause for each of us. I thought I would start by telling you a little bit about me. I'm just going to ask in the back, are my slides ready, or do I need to? Sorry. Let's figure out the slides. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about me. My name is Brenda Anderson. First and foremost, I am a single mom of 2 teenage boys. My oldest is 19, and he attends SUU. He's studying business management and psychology, and he is incredibly intelligent, and he's kind, and he's so observant. My second son is 17, and he's a senior at Davis High School. And Danny is energetic, and he's fun and funny, and he has the warmest heart of anyone that I know. My kids inspire me every single day. Another thing about me is I'm a world traveler. I had the unique privilege of being raised overseas. My dad was a diplomat and worked for the United States State Department. I was raised in countries like the Dominican Republic, Honduras, Bangladesh, and Egypt. In fact, one of the highlights of my life was my high school graduation, which happened at the Pyramids of Giza with the Sphinx and the pyramids as their backdrop. It was awesome. I feel like because I was raised overseas and had that experience, I have a unique view on the world, and I appreciate cultures and peoples and diversity. I celebrate that, and I feel like I have a gift of being able to see the beauty in everywhere and in everything. I'm also a survivor, which I'll get to talk about here in a minute. I have what some people would consider the most useless degree. I graduated from Weber State University with an art degree. However, my art degree actually served me really well. I had an emphasis in graphic design, and I built my career as a graphic designer, then learned how to build and develop brands, art-directed and creative-directed. I love what I do. I do love art and art history, and I've been in museums all over the world. And finally, I am the founder, creator, and CEO of Jipe, and I'm excited that I get to tell you more about that here in a few minutes. So I thought I would spend this time with you talking about my journey and how I got to where I am today. And we're going to talk about something that I feel is really important. We're going to talk about paradigm shifts. And the way that we look at something and view something and attack or approach something has powerful impact on the outcome. And it can incite great change within us and what we're able to accomplish. I'm going to talk about a few paradigm shifts in my own life that I feel like got me to where I am today. Have you ever asked yourself this question? Why is this happening to me? If you have, yeah. Why is this happening to me? It's kind of an easy one to do when things get hard. I'm going to share a story about myself and get a little vulnerable. 4 years ago, I was living my best life. I had a mid-management marketing job that I loved, and at that point, I had been a single mom for 6 years, and I was really proud of the life that I had created for myself and for my kids. I bought a house in Fruit Heights City. It was beautiful, and life was good. It was summer, and I was dating a little bit, and it just felt like this is good. I'm in a good place. And I went to bed one night, and everything was normal. And then I woke up the next morning, and everything was not normal anymore. When I woke up, overnight, I lost the hearing in my left ear. And it was kind of weird. It's kind of like when you get off an airplane and you need to yawn and pop your ear. but I had no release. And then I thought, oh, maybe, I know it's gross, but I'm like, maybe I just have like a whole bunch of earwax in my ear. And so I bought one of those like home earwax candles that you light over your ear. Have you ever done that? Well, it didn't really work. I still couldn't hear. And a few days went by, and I inherently knew something was wrong. Something bigger was happening. So I called ENTs. I'd never seen an ENT before. And I literally was like, well, I'm seeing whoever can see me the fastest because this isn't feeling very good. It's not sitting very well with me. So early the following week, I was able to see an ENT. And I went to the exam room and sat there, and he examined my ear, and everything looked perfectly fine. I think he thought I was crazy. He's like, everything looks good. I'm like, well, it's not good. So he said, well, we're going to do an audiogram. And audiograms aren't super routine, but they're when they put you in that little box of a room, a soundproof room, and they put little sensors on your head and in your ears and give you a clicker. And you're supposed to click the button every time you hear a noise or a word or a sound. And they started with my right ear, and I sat there in that room all by myself, and I was just clicking away. Everything was fine. And then they moved to my left ear. And all alone, I sat there silently crying to myself because I was failing. I couldn't hear anything. And after that, the doctor's demeanor had completely changed. He sat with me, and they can tell a lot of things from an audiogram. He's like, you have extensive nerve damage. We don't know why. It's super rare. You're young, you're healthy, it's sudden, it's only on one side. There's only a few things that can cause this. None of them are good. So after about a month, as most doctors do, they send you through like different testing to figure things out, like the easiest stuff they get through first. And after about a month, he ordered an MRI. And I had never had an MRI before. So I went and had the MRI. It's a head scan. Have you ever had an MRI before? It's not exactly fun. It's very claustrophobic, and it's loud, and it's uncomfortable, and you can't move. When you do a head scan, they actually put additional stuff around you, like right in front of your face and around your head, to prevent you from moving. And I was terrified of moving. At one point, I sneezed during the scan, and I thought, oh my gosh, I messed it all up. This is going to be the worst. But that exam, same thing. I just sat there, and I laid on the bed still and cried. The next morning at 8:01, I got a call from the doctor. Miss Anderson, we'd like you to come in to review your scans. Because of work, I couldn't get in until the end of the day, and I convinced myself the entire day that they see all their patients to review scans, which isn't true. They don't do that. I sat across from the doctor in the exam room, and it turns out I had a golf ball-sized tumor lodged in my inner left ear, pushing my brain stem dangerously over to the right and my brain up and over to the right. If this picture isn't clear, this one shows it a little better. It was an acoustic neuroma, specifically a vestibular schwannoma, in my head, on my brain, and I was going to have brain surgery. I bet there's not very many of us in the room. I'm probably the only one that has had brain surgery. Even the idea is terrifying. This was the first time in my life I was completely 100% out of control. There was nothing that I could do to change what was happening to me. I was going to have brain surgery. I had a massive tumor in my brain. It's moments like this that can change us, and it's really easy to play the victim and say, why is this happening to me? But I made a very conscious decision at that point in my life that I wasn't going to do this. I changed this to, this is happening to me. This is happening to me. What am I going to do about it? Who do I want to be through this process and this trial, who do I want to be on the other side of this, if there is another side of this? And I made a decision that I was going to attack this trial with as much grace and dignity as I knew how. Interestingly enough, at the beginning of 2018, I decided I wasn't going to do New Year's resolutions, but I was going to pick a theme for the year. I didn't know what it was going to be. At the end of January, I was like, I got to pick something. So I grabbed a note card and a Sharpie, and I just wrote down whatever, it just came to my head. And I wrote down, oh crap, this is happening to me. I wrote down "be brave" on this note card, and I put tape, and I taped it on my mirror. I didn't think much else about it. Little did I know that later that year, this phrase and this mantra was going to sustain me through the hardest challenge of my entire life. I had to be brave. I had to show my kids what to do when life throws something really crappy at you, how to behave. I owed it to them. I owed it to myself. And that's just who I wanted to be. This remains on my mirror today. So about a month after my diagnosis, I underwent an 8-hour operation. There were 2 goals of the surgery. One was to successfully remove the tumor, and the second was to preserve my facial nerve. So if you're unaware, you have 3 nerves inside your inner ear. You have your facial nerve, you have your auditory nerve, and your vestibular nerve. In order to expose the tumor, they only had one option. They had to drill a hole through the back of my head behind my ear and completely destroy the inner ear mechanism. I was never going to hear again in my left ear. My hearing was lost. They didn't even save the auditory nerve. They took that out with the tumor, and the tumor actually had grown all the way around the auditory nerve and my vestibular nerve. They took that nerve out too, which is your balance nerve. They did preserve the facial nerve, but it was going to be damaged, and they knew that. One of the scariest things about this surgery is they don't know to what extent the damage to your facial nerve will be. Some patients have a partial recovery, some have a full recovery, and some patients, their facial nerve never recovers. My face went paralyzed after surgery. Did you guys see like the Justin Bieber thing where his face went paralyzed? That was me. Half of my face was completely paralyzed, which affects your eye and your mouth and how you talk, how you chew. I couldn't close my eye all the way, which caused all kinds of problems. I had to wear this awesome patch for a couple months. It was great. That's me doing a full smile, just half on one side. And I didn't know for a few months what was going to happen to my facial nerve. Thankfully, I have about a 90% recovery of my facial nerve. I have pockets of paralysis in my face that affect my mouth and my eye a little bit, but I'm pretty lucky. I am 100% deaf in my left ear. And then I told you they took out my balance nerve. Well, that was interesting because I couldn't walk, I couldn't stand, I couldn't turn around in a circle, I couldn't even turn my head from side to side like this. I had to learn how to do all those things again. My wonderful, beautiful mom moved in with me for a month to be my caretaker because I couldn't do anything for myself. This was the hardest time of my life. I maxed out my short-term disability leave. Thankfully, I had great benefits. And even after that, my employer was so great, and I eased back into work until I was strong and healthy to work full-time again. I spend so much time telling this story because it was transformative for me. It was a time in my life where I learned that I am brave, that I can do incredibly challenging, difficult things. And that paradigm shift of not playing the victim and just attacking it exactly how I wanted to be, it was character building. And I'm convinced, had I never gone through this process, I would have never started my business. I wouldn't have been brave enough to do it. I put together a couple prompts or questions that you can consider if you are facing something in your life where you're thinking, why is this happening to me? And one of the things that you can ask yourself is, what am I going to do about it? A about this challenge that's right in front of me. Who do I want to be through this? And who do I want to be on the other side of this? Think about what inspires you and motivates you. Maybe it's your children like me. Maybe it's a loved one, a spouse. Maybe it's faith. It could be all kinds of things. And I also encourage you to choose a mantra, like something that's going to get you through. I believe in that stuff. Like that sustained me. I became Be Brave. I became that. When we have these paradigm shifts, they change everything. And we can do things we never thought we could do before. The next question that sometimes we ask ourselves is, why me? So here I am. It's about a year after my brain tumor crisis, and I started feeling like I was ready for something new in my career. I actually had the idea of Jipe before my brain tumor diagnosis, but it had to get shelved along with everything else while I took care of my health and my healing. So now I get to tell you a little bit about Jipe. Jipe is a new job search app. Jipe is designed to connect entry-level job seekers with local hiring businesses. We're really trying to help that younger demographic find a job in a much faster, easier, simpler way, in a way that makes sense in the way that they want to use technology. I built it like a dating app. So you create a work profile and select your filters, and then we match you to jobs that the job seeker can swipe through and easily apply for on the app. This was the big idea, and I'm an idea machine. I have ideas all the time, but this is the one that stuck. And so when I started feeling like I was ready for something new, I actually had this experience at work where I felt, even though I loved my employer and I'd been there a long time, at that point, 9 years, I felt like I was mistreated during a promotion. And I left that meeting empowered, because what it did for me is I realized I can't wait for someone to give me my success. And I left that meeting and I said, I'm going to go create my own. And that Jipe thing, I'm going to go build it. It took a few months for me to really get up the courage to do it, because it's really, I knew what I was building and what it could be. Who was I? Why me? Why do I think I can do this? Who am I to build a tech company? I've never built an app before. I don't know how to do that. I don't know anything. I mean, I know a little bit about branding and design and creative direction, but I know nothing else about starting a company and building an app. I just knew that I had an idea. And I had a moment that was it's crystallized in my mind. I was standing in my bedroom window, looking out the window, and I have a view of the mountains, and it hit me. And, sorry, my clicker's not working. And why not me became, or why me became, why not me? I think Jess Toulson said the same thing earlier this morning, is why not me? Why can't I have an idea that people will like? Why can't I figure out how to build an app? Why can't I figure out how to start a business? And that moment, that was such a huge paradigm shift for me, because I went from something that was limiting to something that was empowering. And I went and I grabbed another card and my Sharpie and I chicken scratched on it, why not me? And I taped it to the mirror above Be Brave. And these are the OGs. They're still on my mirror today, and I don't have any intention of bringing them down. Why not me? I can do this. This idea came to me, and I am the one to go build it. So if you have an idea for a business, you are the one. You're the one to do it. Go do it. Here are some prompts for you to think through if you're struggling with overcoming this hurdle, which is really common. You can ask yourself if your perception is real or made up. I think we do that a lot. We tell ourselves stories all the time. And oftentimes, they're not real. We make up these stories in our head, like me telling myself, who am I to think I can do this and build an app and have a cool idea? That's just a perception that was my reality at the time until I changed it. You can also be what you want and have what you desire, and I believe that. I could be a founder and a CEO of a company. That idea was ludicrous just a few weeks before that, even like a few moments before that. It was like, my title before that was Senior Marketing Manager. And the day I changed from Senior Marketing Manager to CEO on LinkedIn was like, I definitely had that imposter syndrome that we talk about. I just felt like, oh my gosh, who am I? Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But I can do it, and I can have that, and I can have what I desire. I can go and build that thing. And Sam Taggart talked about that. You can have it. If you desire to build it, go and build it. And face your fear right in the face. What is afraid of making you not try? And fear is limiting. You have to overcome that fear and be okay with failure. That was an exercise I had to do in my head, and it took a while. It's really fun to entertain the ideas of success. I'm going to build an app, and it's going to be great, and everyone's going to like it, and all these people are going to pay me money, and it's going to be great. It's not so fun to entertain the idea of, well, what if it doesn't work? What if it fails? That's not as fun to entertain, but I had to do that and be okay with it to take that step. So I faced that fear head on and was able to overcome it. So here I am. I'm all in. I'm going to do this. But the truth is, I don't know how. I don't know what to do. I don't know anything. So, like everyone else has talked about today, I did what every respectable person does in this century. I went to Google, how to build a business plan. That's exactly what I Googled. And it turns out a business plan is really just a story. And I was like, well, I know how to build a story. I built my career designing decks for executives and sales teams. I know how to build a story. So I took all the information that I was absorbing and created the best business plan I knew how. I spent all of Thanksgiving break 2019 building a business plan. I think my kids were going to kill me. And then I felt like, well, I've got a business plan. Now I need a business entity. So I talked to a neighbor who's an attorney. I knew he wasn't the right kind of attorney, but I was like, maybe he knows someone. He introduced me to a friend he went to law school with. I hired him. We formed the legal entity of Jipe. So now I had a business plan and I had a legal entity. I'm ready to rock and roll. I didn't even know what that was, but I was ready. Here we go. I went to Silicon Slope Summit in 2020, which was in, I think, February, maybe the end of January that year. And I absorbed as much as I could. I was terrified, but I stayed after and waited to talk to presenters and ask them questions. I learned about Y Combinator. I was like, Y Combinator, and then I Googled it, and I watched like dozens of YouTube videos, which are super helpful, by the way. And I just learned as much as I could. And then March 2020 hit. And I was like, oh, that was fun. And I put Jipe on the shelf. That didn't last very long. Within 2 weeks, I felt that stirring and that, like, go, no, like, don't stop. You can do this. Like, now is the time to be innovative. And I had someone tell me, like, in times of recession and challenges and this pandemic, this is the time to be innovative and big payoffs for those who dare to try. And I was like, that feels good. So I'm going to go. So I picked it back up and miraculously was able to pull together some money and self-funded to start development. And I had this like naive idea that if I started building Jipe, the rest of the money would come. We can learn how to do things. We can learn anything that we want. And this is a paradigm shift that has to take place in your mind if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur. I learned how to find someone to build my app. There's lots of different ways to do it, and I had to research and figure out what felt the best to me. And I figured it out, and I started it, and we started development. And honestly, thankfully, and I was really blessed, later that year, the rest of the money did come. I found an early investor, and he helped give enough money to complete development, some marketing dollars behind it, and I was able to have a salary and quit my full-time job and work on Jipe full-time. Like, the dream was coming true, and it was awesome. I learned how to build Jipe and how to start a company, and it was great. It was great until it wasn't great, because launch didn't really go that well, honestly. It was fun for a few days, and then it just tapered off, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Here I am. And then 6 weeks after launch, my investor came to me, and he said, for health reasons, he's like, I'm having these, he had his own health things. He's like, I have to back off. And he pulled away from the business. I luckily was able to buy back my equity and buy back my company that he owned, but he was gone, and I was left in the dark. I call these my dark months because they really literally were. I did not know what to do or where to turn to. And it was about 2 months where I was trying and just doing what I could do, but I really didn't know what to do. And I forced myself to go to a networking event that I really didn't want to go to. And I ended up meeting an individual. Miraculously, I was supposed to meet him, and he opened a door, and then another door, and then another door. I learned about Boom Startup and joined that accelerator program, which changed everything. I learned how to do things I didn't know were things. I remember the first time, I think it wasn't an investor, but it was someone who could connect me to an investor. He's like, send me your deck and your pro forma. And I was like, oh my gosh, Google, what is a pro forma? I really literally didn't know what it was, but I learned how to build one, which is hard because I have an art degree, remember? Building a pro forma does not come naturally for me. But I learned how to do it, and I learned how to do amazing things. I learned how to sell. I hate selling. But I cold call, and I do it, and I still do it today. I have a team, but I'll take sales calls too. I guerrilla market as much as I can. I've gone to the mall and exchanged dollar bills for downloads of my app. I've learned how to pitch to investors. I've actually closed capital just this morning. I got 2 more checks from angels that came in and closed this morning. And I was so excited on the drive down here this morning. I was like, I can't believe it. This is happening. Finally, it's been a really long road. And I've done amazing things. Some of my highlights is I won the first pitch competition I ever entered. This was about a year ago. And I won first place in my category at the Boom Startup Pitch Competition last year. And then earlier this year, along with over 100 other companies, I entered a pitch competition, the One Utah Summit. I was a finalist and got to pitch on stage to 1,200 of Utah's top professionals, business people, and politicians. The governor was on stage as one of the judges, and I won 3rd place and $10,000 for my company at the One Utah Summit. Yeah. Thanks. I made the Win 100 list. Top 100 entrepreneurs in Utah, most likely to build a high-growth company. I never thought any of this would happen. One of my most recent wins is a partnership with Rev Road. I'm one of their portfolio companies. Over 100 companies applied for their summer cohort, and only 2 got selected, and I was one of them. Thanks. I'm so proud of the things that I've done and what I've learned. And what I learned with that paradigm shift is I don't have to know how to do everything. I just have to be willing to learn how to do it. I can learn how to do these things. There's things I'm still learning today that I don't feel that I'm that great at. I'm learning how to grow a team and how to increase my revenue and decrease churn. I'm constantly learning how to pitch to investors and get better and better and better at it. I'm learning these things, and you can too. When you're approaching like something that you don't know how to do, you can learn how to do it. Consider these prompts, these phrases or questions. If you're hitting a brick wall, you don't have to have all the answers. I'm pretty sure every speaker already today has said this at some point in their presentation. You don't have to know all the answers to get going. You just have to be willing to take the first step. Think about your network. Who do you know in your network that can help? And oftentimes it's the next layer deep. Who do you know someone? Do you know someone that knows someone who can help you and help solve your problems? Using your network is learning how to do things. So definitely learn how to network. And I think Carolyn Williams is speaking later today about networking. So make sure you stay for her presentation. And you can do this. You absolutely can do this. And you have to be all in. And when you're all in, it's all about growing your business, right? You have to give it all. I mean, yes, you have to create goals. You have to track your achievements. You have to learn how to go, go, go. Make sure you take breaks for sure and do self-care. But it is about growing your business. But I am going to challenge you and warn you that I don't think it's all about growing your business. I feel like we have to be able to detach ourselves from our business. And that's kind of hard to do when you're all in. But I'll tell you why. I had an early mentor tell me when I first started my business, he said, Brenda, I want you to remember this because this is really important. He said, your value is not tied to the success or failure of your business. Your value is not tied to the success or failure of your business. And I internalize that and I believe that. Brenda is not Jipe. Jipe is not Brenda. We are our own separate things. If I tie my value to Jipe too much, if Jipe goes bad, what happens to me? So I had a paradigm shift, and I feel like the most important thing, it's about growing me, and it's about the journey. Because at the end of the day, I always get to keep that. And if I can make it about the journey and the process, and yes, I'm all in and I'm going and I have goals and I'm going for it. I've got a lot of grit and determination. But it's more about the journey. And when I can do that, I win every single day, no matter what happens inside the business. And I truly believe that the most important thing I am growing is myself. I hope one of these paradigm shifts, or some of them, have helped you and maybe inspired you. And if you want to, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect with me. I'd love to be connected with you. And tell me, send me a message and tell me what paradigm shift spoke out to you or jumped out to you and why. I'd love to hear your stories if you care to share them. When we have a mind shift, it really helps us overcome barriers. And they're powerful, and they can incite change in you and within you, and they can result in incredible outcomes and things that you never thought you could do, you'll be able to do. We're going to open up the rest of this time for Q&A and continue the conversation. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask. I am a little bit hard of hearing, and if you're in the back, I'm probably not going to hear you. So speak really louder, or I think there's mics too. So. How did you get your first early investor? How did I get my first early investor? Great question. I believe in miracles, and I feel like it was a miracle. I had a really good friend that I had worked with on projects. She was a contractor that I had worked with many times for years, and she knew what I was doing with Jipe, and she happened to tell a neighbor, or she was having a conversation with one of her neighbors and learned that he and his family like to invest in businesses and early stage tech. She's like, oh, well, you should talk to Brenda. So I literally had lunch with him, and then the next week I was in the living room pitching to him and his dad, and like within about 30 days I closed some funding with him. So it was awesome. Yeah. Which was really exciting, but also, so like when he had to leave and the money ended, that was also like really terrifying. And raising money since then, like it's been hard. I've had to work my butt off to get to where I'm at today, where I'm starting to close some funding again. Yes. What is my favorite piece of advice to give? Oh, that's tough. I think it depends on the situation, but I would say that I would say it's centered around these paradigm shifts. Like, don't limit yourself. Like, you can do it. I think like we're afraid. I talk to women a lot, and I think as women we are really hard on ourselves, and we feel like we have to be really good at all these things before we try. And I'm a big proponent of like, just go for it and just make that first step. So everything around me is centered around like bravery and courage. Like that's just like one of my favorite words are those words. And like, just go, like be brave and do it. It's like Jess Tolson said this morning. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? At least you tried. If you never even try, then you'll never succeed and you'll have regrets for not trying. So I would just encourage people to follow their dreams and chase it and go for it. If you're feeling inspired to do something, do it. Go build it, figure it out, ask questions, network, all the things. In the back. If I could do one thing differently, what would it be? I would say here I say like, and I hope this doesn't contradict me, I really struggle with like being really decisive. Like I am driven and I can go, but I'm scared to death to make mistakes. So sometimes I like wait too long to pull the trigger. So I think what I would do differently is be willing to pull the trigger faster, whether it's hiring, whether it's talking to a company that I want to sell from, whether it's talking to a group of teenagers that I want to download my app. Like, just don't be afraid and like hesitate. Pull the trigger, because I feel like sometimes I limit myself when I do that. And I wish I were better at being more decisive more quickly. Does that make sense? Anything else? Oh, okay, in the very back. Sorry, if I heard you right, how important is firing people? Well, I haven't had to do it yet. I have a team, there's 2.5 of us, and so I haven't had to fire an employee. I have had to fire contractors, though, and I think it's important to do that quickly. As soon as you realize something's not working, you got to make a decision, and again, that's something that I'm learning, but the first time I had to fire a contractor, it was so hard because I actually had a relationship with them. And I think that's why I was like, but it's not working and it's costing way too much money. But when I finally did, it was like, that was the right decision. So I think when you realize it's not working, especially in a startup, you can't bleed cash. If it's not working, you have to like cut it and let it go so you can free up cash for either to replace that person or something else that's going to actually move the needle forward. So I would say it's important. I haven't had to do that with an employee yet, though. Here in the middle, and then up here. That's really, for my very first investor? Yeah, they definitely want equity. It was a lot. So had I because he backed out early, and the checks were coming in monthly, his percent ownership was directly tied to how much he had given me up to that point. But had he given me the full amount, it would have been 40%, which is pretty high based on a $1 million valuation. Yeah, I mean, this was at idea stage, so I didn't have a product. It was pre-revenue. I talked to a couple people who, I mean, we just negotiated, and then I bounced it off of the attorney that I had hired and a couple other people that I knew to just say, is this a good deal? Should I do it? Because 40% felt like a lot. Like, that hurt. That was really hard to sign that line. But it gave me the power to actually finish and build my product. I would have never been able to build it without that. No, when the money came in and it funded, I quit my job and then started working on Jipe full time. Valuation, yeah, it's super scary. Valuations are really hard, and they're kind of a little fluffy, where you don't really know what it's worth, especially when it's an idea stage. But for an idea stage early tech company, like basing it off $1 million seemed to be okay. I wish I had perfect answers, but I think now at the stage that I'm at, I work with a team and I have advisors and that financial advisors that can help me with the valuation and make sure that that's what the pro forma and projections are so valuable, because they kind of give you that number, what you should be evaluating your company at. So when you go to investors, you can have a great place to start. They'll probably negotiate with you and want to negotiate it down, but at least you have a starting place. No. Nope. I had the very beginnings of development. We had designed it and started coding it, the mobile app. There's a web app too for Jipe for businesses. We hadn't started the web app, just the mobile app for job seekers at that point. I did. Yeah, I outsourced all of my development, and the company I hired still is with me today. They maintain the app and do all of my product updates. Yeah, it's Outcode. They're based here in Utah. They're in Draper. They're locally owned and managed, but their engineers are offshore. So it's a great balance. I feel like I have that personal touch, but I'm also saving money by having my engineers offshore. Yeah, you're welcome. I think we have time for one more question, and then we need to end it. Jake?
I was just going to ask, can I have your autograph?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, anything else real quick? Okay, well, thank you so much for spending your time here today and hearing me talk, and I appreciate you very much. So thank you.